Welcome back, Truth Seeker. Today, Friday, February 19th, 2021, Bitcoin hit a new milestone, topping $1 trillion in valuation. And if you missed my video on January 2nd, 2021, when Bitcoin hit its milestone of 33K, today it eclipsed 56,000. January 2nd, it was at 33,000. On January 2nd, we talked about how it would very well be at 45,000 or more on the 45th day of the year, because of how important the number 45 is to Bitcoin. And it ended up being worth 48K, but we thought it would be worth 45 and 50, which is exactly where it ended up being. And we said it could go up even higher from there. And now that it's hit this milestone of $1 trillion, it's not an accident that it comes 45 days before Satoshi Nakamoto's April 5th 4-5 birthday, while he's 45 years old. So I'm going to go back and play little clips of the video from January 2nd, but I just want you to see first that, again, today, February 19th, the day it hit this milestone, is exactly 45 days before April 5th, and Satoshi Nakamoto's the supposed creator of Bitcoin. It's kind of an anonymous character. People don't even know if it's real. It's sort of like Sun Tzu and Art of War. But we're going to talk about, again, the significance of this 45 in the language of Gematria, and then we're going to look at why tomorrow, February 20th, should be very interesting for Bitcoin. And I don't know if it's going to go up or down, but I'm going to tell you why tomorrow should be real interesting for Bitcoin, because there is something magical going on, synced up with the head of the Federal Reserve, who's entertaining the idea of, regulating things like Bitcoin. Again, they want to get us on a digital currency. Which one is it going to be? So, April 5th, Satoshi Nakamoto, again, one more time, 4-5. He's 45 years old, supposedly. Today, this huge milestone, 45 days before his birthday. And like we talked about, Valentine's Day, the 45th day of the year, was exactly 45 weeks after his birthday, which is why we suspect it'd be around 45K. But let me go back and play this. This is from January 3rd, 2021, this video, January 3rd, 2021. I'm just going to play a little bit of it, and then we're going to talk about tomorrow, February 20th. So here we go. Just scrolling down, the person who's credited with the establishment of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, we've talked about this before. His birthday is April 5th, 4-5, as we write it in the U.S. If you're right at 5-4, Jesuit orders 54. But 4-5, and notice this is happening while he's 45 years old. His name, Nakamoto, his surname is 45. Bitcoin is 45. Ritual is 45. And if you read the reporting putting out, a lot of people are projecting that Bitcoin's going to continue to surge through Valentine's Day, which is the 45th day of the year, February 14th. And notice, from his birthday, April 5th, 2020, his 45th birthday, to Valentine's Day, the 45th day of the year, is exactly 45 weeks later. Okay, so there's that piece, and then I'm just going to skip ahead to about the somewhere right around here. Predict, wouldn't it be funny if it went up to 45,000 on Valentine's Day? So, again, we talk about it more. It ends up being a long call-in show. People call in and say, do I think it's going to go up like that? Should they invest? And what I was telling people is, yeah, I do think it's probably going to go up from 33K to 45K, maybe even higher. But are we sure we want to invest in this? Yes, we can make money, but are we essentially investing in our own chains? And I know people who really believe in Bitcoin don't even like me asking that question because they think this is the godsend that's going to free us from the Federal Reserve. But like I tell these people, Bitcoin is very secretive. Nobody really knows who's exactly behind it. No one even knows if Satoshi Nakamoto is a real person. And I'll remind you, the Jesuits sure love Japan. They killed their former superior general this year by the numbers there on May 20th, 2020, Adolfo Nicholas, which we covered then. And we're going to talk about a real familiar pattern with what's going to happen tomorrow, and we'll go back and compare that to what happened with Adolfo Nicholas, again, who died in Japan, where supposedly Satoshi Nakamoto's from. But anyway, I was saying to people, yeah, you can make money, but I don't know. I just don't know. Like, morally, personally, I don't feel right, because I think this whole cryptocurrency thing is a Trojan horse, and I think they're trying to bait us to get us to like the idea of electronic currency. Because again, if they have electronic currency, they can keep track of every last penny that's out there. And you start to think about the downsides of that, there are many. So Bitcoin right now, this thing that a lot of people are making money on, they feel like it's the truth. It's going to set us free. But it's possible, you guys, that it's not what you think it is. And we might find that out as soon as tomorrow. Again, Bitcoin, it rises real fast and it falls real fast. Just like between this point and April 5th, it fell down to 22,000. And that was on the 21st day of the year, which we'll get to. Because again, that happened on the 21st day of the year after Bitcoin hit its record high on January 2nd, a date that can be written 2/1 like 21 to start the year 21 in the 21st century when Bitcoin's based on 21 million coins. And of course, 21 is the number of the Jesuit order, who are related to the Knights Templar, who were the first bankers of this world. But anyway, had you bought in when it dropped to 22,000, because like I said, it's still probably going to get up to that 45K goal. I mean, had you bought in on that on January 21st? Just imagine you'd taken all your money in the bank and put it on Bitcoin on January 21st when it hit 22,000. Your money would have gone from 22,000 to about, well, if you'd put $22 in, it would have become worth $56,000. If you'd taken $22,000 out of the bank and put it in Bitcoin, it would now be worth $56,000. And think about that, just from January 21st. If you make $30,000 in a year and over the last 20 years you've saved up $30,000 and you had just decided to put all that in the bank on January 21st, your money would have gone, way up. You would have way more than doubled your money, which would seem huge if you're someone that doesn't have a lot of money. And there's people in the world who this is happening for right now, so they're believing so much in Bitcoin. And it very well could go up way more, or it could really tank and fall back down like it has in the past, when it went from a whole bunch to a whole little. So again, Bitcoin is this very interesting, financial instrument right now that no one really knows a lot about. It's very complex. It's very hard to understand and wrap your mind around, but there's a lot of people vouching for it and saying it's the real deal. There's no way it can be, controlled and tampered with, but you should already see that with your own eyes that it's not true. Anyhow, we played these two clips. What we said, the significance of 45, it has come back again because now we have a new milestone, 45 days from Nakamoto's upcoming birthday, and he's going to turn 46, and that matters because the word trillion equals 46. This ritual, because again, Nakamoto, Bitcoin, and ritual all equal 45 in Gematria, which is how we knew the number and pattern was significant. Again, if you're new here, this practice of coding numbers into words, it's used in everything in the mainstream. We told people at the beginning of last year that Moderna's stock would blow up on May 7th. A lot of people in this community made a lot of money. And realize, you guys, I'm not really trying to use this knowledge to be an investor, but you could. That's the point. I focus more on rigged sports games and murder the world of futures as we've been doing for 7.5 years. Also told you why Biden would be the 46th president, why Trump would win it in 2016, called a million stories, and much more from this knowledge. In 2020, if you're new here, look into what I predicted in May for the dates that hurricanes would fall on. We put out nearly 10 dates, and on all but one, a hurricane fell. And the one day it didn't make landfall on the date we put out, a hurricane formed in the ocean. Again, this knowledge, you guys, is used by the controllers of this world. And that's why Bitcoin moving like this should be concerning to you. When I was down in Portland, multiple people talked to me about how they really like my work, but the one thing they think I'm wrong about is Bitcoin. And again, to me, that's that cognitive dissonance religion mindset. If you think the work that I'm showing you applies to everything but the one thing you're really into, whether that's your religion or your sports team or your Bitcoin, again, it's because you're practicing cognitive dissonance in those areas. And look at what I'm about to show you with how this whole ritual comes together. So again, this is synced up with his 46th birthday, and it became $1 trillion asset. Now, what's interesting about tomorrow, February 20th, tomorrow will be his 322nd day of his age, 322. And tomorrow's date, February 20th, can be written 20/2 like 202. The date February 20th, the majority of the world writes it 20/2 like 202. When you write out skull and bones, it equals 202. And that is the secret society that identifies by the number 322 out of Yale. The recent Fed chair, Mnuchin, he was a member of Yale Skull and Bones. Two recent presidents have been in Skull and Bones, George W. Bush and George Herbert Walker Bush, the father and son. And, Skull and Bones is at Yale, where Yellen, the current Fed chair, also went to school. Was she a member of Skull and Bones? Maybe, maybe not. It's not public information with her like it was with Mnuchin. But anyway, the 202nd minute of the day is 3:22 in the morning. 3:22. Again, Tim Russert asked both Bush and Kerry in 2004, the two people running against each other for president, Republican and Democrat, about being in Skull and Bones. What were the odds of that, them being from such a small fraternity, yet the two frontrunners for the major parties? And he asked them both about 322, and both laughed and said, they can't say much, it's a secret society. Tim Russert would die not long after in history, and if you read his Wikipedia page, and even articles that were written at the time of his death, paramedics got to him at 2:23 in the afternoon, 322 in reverse. Tim Russert was also Jesuit educated, and again, the Jesuits in their logo have the Knights Templar cross. The Jesuits and the Knights Templar serve the Catholic Church, which we'll talk more about in a moment, because Bitcoin, through one of its, chief experts, heavily connected to Catholicism. But again, the Jesuits and the Templars serve the Catholic Church, and Skull and Bones gets their name and symbol, this one right here. They get it from the Knights Templar. And the Knights Templar, they would bury their dead in a shallow grave, let their bodies decompose, and then they would take their bones and put them in an ossuary, which is a fancy box. And the last bones that would be placed in were the biggest bones in the body, the thigh bones, in the cross form with the skull on top. And then you would close the lid for the ossuary. So, understand, Jesuits, Skull and Bones, Knights Templar, they're all related. And with regards to the Knights Templar, in history as we know it, they are the world's first bankers, and we're talking about financial instruments. So, again, tomorrow, February 20th, after this milestone, we have this interesting date. And this doesn't mean that the currency will go up or down. We're in unprecedented territory. So, on this point, I'm in wait and see. January 2nd, I was feeling like, it's probably going to go up to 45,000 on the 45th day of the year, 45 weeks after Satoshi Nakamoto's birthday. And, but what goes on with this Skull and Bones ritual? Again, that remains to be seen. There's all these other cryptocurrencies out there. Let's just say Bitcoin crashes. Many people will be super depressed, right? They'll just think, God, I got out one day too late. This happens to investors all the time. And I'm not saying that that's the case, but if it does crash, there's still all this new generated interest in cryptocurrency, and there's plenty of other ones out there with hype and people thinking they're going to be the next one. All that energy could just as easily jump into the next currency. So anyway, with regards to Yale and Skull and Bones, again, comes from the Knights Templar who served the Roman Catholic Church. Now notice the word Roman Catholic is 219, and this milestone comes on February 19th, 219. Okay? From Satoshi Nakamoto's birthday to today, it's 320 days after his birthday. You could also say it's his 321st day of his age. Like tomorrow will be 321 days after his birthday or his 322nd day of his age. The difference is you're either counting the day of the birthday or not. When you say 322nd day of age, that means from the day he turned, April 5th, up through tomorrow is 322 days. If you say 321 days after his birthday, you're just not counting the birthday. So realize, today, 320 days after the birthday, 219, Roman Catholic 219, Roman Catholic Church 320. You might recall we talked about this with George Floyd and the Jesuit ritual and how he was pulled out of a Mercedes-Benz ML320 and moved to a different police cruiser from number 83 to number 320, which was captured on camera while the officer was on his neck. And we were saying, what are the odds that we have two 320s on the screen in light of this being a Jesuit ritual, and the Jesuits serve the Catholic Church, and the Jesuit tactic is divide and conquer and order out of chaos. And that's what they do. They create all these rituals for the people to become involved in that ultimately serve their agenda, from funneling them into electronic currency to making them get riled up with the news and focused on one another and fighting amongst one of themselves instead of their collective enemy that works against them every single day. But coming back to this whole ritual, today, if you read the article, they're saying Bitcoin costs around $55,000. it went above 56,000 today and then came a hair down below 56,000. So like right now it's like 55,900 and something. But in light of the milestone, 45 days from his birthday and 55K being the number in some articles, others say 56K, which we'll also get to, but just notice Satoshi Nakamoto's 55, right? Remember, this is a special number. The word God equals 55 when you run the alphabetic order backwards. The word Satan equals 55 when you run the alphabetic order forwards. The word numerology equals 55, as does Fibonacci. And 55 is a special number because it's the 10th triangular number, meaning if you add 1 through 10 together, it's 55. And it's also the 10th Fibonacci number, if you know the Fibonacci sequence, which are said to be the numbers of God, related to phi, the golden ratio. So 55, very special. That's the value in headlines on the day of this trillion milestone. And you think about God, again, in God we trust on the money. A lot of people know the phrase, money is the root of all evil. Evil associated with Satan, bad, darkness, God associated with good. Some people trying to figure out in this world what's good and what's bad. Is Bitcoin good or bad? Again, I leave it up to you. I'm not telling you necessarily what to think, but I'm saying, doesn't all this seem a little bit too perfect? Now, with regards to the whole Yale and Skull and Bones thing, Janet Yellen just replaced Steve Mnuchin, the Skull and Bones member from Yale. She's also from Yale, and keep in mind her partner there down at the Federal Reserve is a Georgetown graduate, the first Jesuit university in the nation. Again, Jesuits have the Knights Templar logo. Skull and Bones gets their symbolism from the Knights Templar and is at Yale. But look at this. From her August 13th birthday to tomorrow is 191 days. 191's the 43rd prime. Remember, Yale's 43. New Haven CT, where Yale is 43, like how you'd write the address on an envelope. And tomorrow has 43 date numerology. So again, 191 days after her birthday, the 43rd prime. Tomorrow with the 43 date numerology plus the Skull and Bones connection, 20/2 like Skull and Bones 202 on the 322nd day of Satoshi Nakamoto's age, if that's even a real person. But also Society of Jesus, the official name of the Jesuits, 191. And with Bitcoin eclipsing 56K today before coming back down and nestling in just below, look, it's just below. Again, Society of Jesus is 191 and 56. You could also say that today was Janet Yellen's 191st day of her age. Tomorrow, the Skull and Bones Day, will be 191 days after her birthday. That's why you have to look at it both ways. If you're new here, all year we've been talking about rituals with 56. Qassam Soleimani killing, big 56 ritual. Coronavirus, the biggest 56 ritual ever. Black Lives Matter, 56 ritual after 56. And right on down the line, the Trump impeachment, part 2, was exactly 56 weeks after the first, plus 10 other 56s in it. Again, everything that's been dominating the media, the programming for our minds, has been 56, 56, 56, which is interesting because words like mind control equal 56, as does Washington, D.C., the headquarters of the federal government, where government means govern the mental, govern the mind. Washington, D.C. was once called Rome on the Potomac, owned by Francis Pope, not to be confused with Pope Francis, the first Jesuit Pope. But look at how perfect all of this is. And you know what else is weird? Cryptocurrency equals Janet Louise Yellen. Isn't that wild? And the Federal Reserve right now is entertaining these ideas of regulating cryptocurrencies to make them more stabilized. And I know the Bitcoin fans will say it's impossible. Never say anything's impossible, They want to bring in and overhaul something, change the way the system operates, but make it the thing. They can do it, So anyway, tomorrow should be very interesting. And again, just realize, had you taken the advice we put out at the beginning of the year, you could have made a significant, gain on your financial returns. But again, is it ethical? Is this what we want to be doing? I know we got to feed ourselves. I can't be mad at anybody trying to feed themselves and their family and make their place better in this world. But again, are these things essentially, carrots on sticks that are taking us to a place that's ultimately going to be bad for all of us? And that is what I tend to think is going on. I could be wrong, but we will see. We will see. Now, just to go over some things. Again, January 2nd, 2/1 to start 2021 in the 21st century. when Bitcoin's based on 21 million coins, you get this milestone. Bitcoin soars past 33K. And these were the headlines on January 3rd, the next morning, which was a date with 33 numerology. And 2021 is the 33-year anniversary of The Economist cover. By the way, The Economist, you guys, The Economist, again, they've been doing some nasty 56 headlines this year that we've talked about, but The Economist in the most pure cipher is 56. Again, if you're new here, there's 4 base ciphers. The alphabetic order with the rules numerology, where 56 is considered the most pure. Also 17861. But again, in that same cipher, Society of Jesus 56, Washington, D.C. 56, Mind Control 56, Coronavirus 56, Black Lives Matter 56. Remember the whole toilet paper joke? Coronavirus came and then everybody went and bought out the toilet paper because the media told them so, because people do what the media tells them in big numbers. But The Economist, 2021 is the 33-year anniversary of this currency. And remember, we were looking at this magazine cover well in advance. We said we got to watch the market on 10/10/2018 because that's the date on this thing. Remember, 10/10/2018 was one of the worst days for the market in history. And it just reminds that these people can move markets in the blink of an eye. And people in Bitcoin should really realize that, because Bitcoin can move real big, real fast. Somebody's pulling those strings. But again, that magazine cover was put out January 9th, like 9/1. Phoenix is 91. That's the phoenix rising from the dollar ashes. The phoenix, very important symbol to the world elite. The thing that rises from the ashes. Fits in with that order out of chaos agenda. Destroy and rebuild. Create the problem, bring about the solution. Here's a problem. There's a pandemic. It's so deadly. You got to say that or YouTube will take your channel down. And, the germs could even be on the money. So we're not accepting dollar bills here. You know what I mean? They're really getting in our minds, this digital currency. Boom, Bitcoin is just on fire. And what's on the top of that Phoenix, by the way? Is that not, that very Catholic symbol? Very much like what's on the Catholic saint's helmet. What they call that, the fleur-de-lis. Got that 666 Gematria. Number of the beast, 666 talons of gold. So anyway, we talked about that January 2nd. On January 21st, Bitcoin fell. It had its worst day on January 21st. It hit the record number by the Jesuit number. It fell by the Jesuit number. The Lord giveth and he taketh, right? But these people are playing God. It's not really God. It's the people playing God with the instruments that say, in God we trust on them. Well, the Bitcoin doesn't have that yet, but hey, it might in the future. But, again, this was a date with 21 numerology. It was the 21st day of 2021 where Bitcoin really tanked after the 2/1 ritual. And then, like we said, on Valentine's Day, it should hit 45K. It actually hit 48K that day. And then it fell down to just about 46.5 by the end of Valentine's Day. I took the screenshot, but when I take the screenshot, it's always showing a time zone ahead. Like here, I'll just show you right now. I'm on the West Coast, right? So right here, it's 9:22 at p.m. Pacific time right now, but it shows 5:20 a.m. UTC. So that's just like when I took the screenshot here. It was still Valentine's Day, right? It was still Valentine's Day. And not far off from the mark that we predicted on January 2nd. And like we said, when it fell down on the 21st, I said, I still won't be surprised if it gets back up to the mark where it's supposed to be. That 45 ritual is something else. So again, had you bought in then, you could have doubled your money. Think about that. From January 21st to Valentine's Day, what is that? That's 24 days later, isn't it? 24 days later. In 24 days, had you taken everything you were worth and put it in there, your money would have more than doubled. I mean, that's pretty amazing to think about. If you would have put all your money in the bank and you were a billionaire, in that same period of time, you probably would have got 50 cents back on bank interest. So, again, we know that the federal, fiat currency here in the U.S. is a sinking ship. I'm not arguing against that, but I'm just saying, realize they're moving us. They want to transition us. Are we sure that the same people who control that aren't the same people who control this? I know a lot of you think the answer is no, but do you really have the proof when you don't know that much about Bitcoin? And again, for years, we've just demonstrated stories like this in the headlines. Man who accidentally threw out a Bitcoin fortune offers $70 million for permission to dig it up in a landfill. And notice the gematria of landfill, 70. You know, the story was a British man who accidentally threw a hand drive loaded with Bitcoin into the trash has offered the local authority where he lives more than $70 million if it allows him to excavate a landfill. You know? So what are the odds? And don't forget, Vatican is 70, Francis is 70. A lot of 70 rituals with coronavirus, another major Jesuit agenda. Again, to understand that the Jesuits are behind this, you guys, look up Event 201. And let me take you through something, again, one more time, something we've done a million times this year. When you write out Ignatius of Loyola, who died in 1556, remember Society of Jesus is 56, who are the Jesuits, but when you write out Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Jesuits, his name's 201. Pope Francis is the first Jesuit pope, and notice his birth name equals 201, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, and he lives in the Domus Sanctae Martyr. You can look this up. He's the first pope to live there, and that equals 201. And more specifically, he's the first to live in this apartment at the Vatican, the Domus Sanctae Martyr, but he even lives in room number 201. And there's so much more to say about this, but when you run the alphabetic order in reverse, the Jesuit order is 201. In history, they were supposedly saved by Catherine the Great, who preserved the order with 201 Jesuits who she got in the partition of Poland in 1772. And again, just so much more. I mean, there's just so much I could tell you about 201, but Event 201 was the coronavirus outbreak simulation the same day the military World Games began in Wuhan, China, which were created in Rome by the Catholic Church and the Jesuits. And again, it was 56 days after that simulation that the first case of coronavirus in the world was documented, which was on December 12th, 2019. But then they pulled the date back and back and back and back, and now all the way back to November 17th. But initially, it was 56 days after the simulation. So again, just so many rituals with these numbers. All of these numbers point in one direction. The Catholic Church, the Vatican, the independent city-state that has its own bank. It's unknown how much wealth's really in that bank. The Catholic Church plays down how much wealth there is, but it's so easy to lie about it. They're their own independent city-state. They audit their own bank. There's essentially no regulation over it. It's the perfect place for corruption in the world. And if you don't know about the 33-day Pope, look into him, because when he came in, he said he was going to clean up the Vatican bank and get all the mafia money out of there. He ended up going to bed on the Jesuit day that they were recognized by Roman history, September 27th, and he never woke up again. And what's interesting is he was the 33-day Pope. Most people believe he was killed with arsenic. Arsenic equals 33 in Gematria, and the most pure cipher, and it's the 33rd element on the periodic table. Okay, so with regards to Janet Yellen, just some things about her. She's 74 years old right now, which is a big boss number in itself. But from the day of her birthday to the day that she was picked as the Treasury Secretary to replace Mnuchin, the Skull and Bones member, who went to Yale just like her, it was 103 days after her birthday. Joe Biden, Jesuit, just like Donald Trump was Jesuit. But it's 103 days after her birthday this happened. Jesuits, the plural's 103. Janet Yellen has the Gematria of 42 like Jesuit. The month February also equals 42. Janet Yellen has the Gematria 42, forwards 57 in reverse, like Georgetown's 57, forwards 42 in reverse. That's the first Jesuit university in D.C. Jerome Powell, the chair of the Federal Reserve. If I was saying Janet Yellen was the chair earlier, I meant the secretary. But anyway, these are the two heads. And again, he went to Georgetown. Jerome Powell's got that 201 in his name as well. Skull and Bones also has that 201 connection in the Francis Bacon cipher. And don't forget, the original Bavarian Illuminati, which was established by the Jesuit Adam Weishaupt, it was changed to Order of Illuminati, and that equals 201, like the Jesuit order, and he was a Jesuit. And if you look at the day he established the Bavarian Illuminati, May 1st, 1776, from that day to the day he ended up dying in history, November 18th, 1830, from the anniversary of the establishment to his death was 201 days later. And he died on the 322nd day of the year, 322, like Skull and Bones. And think about the year it was established, 1776, the same year that this country was established. Skull and Bones also has Gematria 76 in the base ciphers. The last Skull and Bones president, George W. Bush, his birthday was July 6th, the 187th day of the year. Washington, D.C. is 187. Society of Jesus is also 187. Also, from Janet Yellen's birthday to the day she was appointed, you could say it was her 103rd day of her age. You could also say it was 102 days after her birthday, the reflection of 201. And again, another number the Jesuits love for their mind warfare tactics, if you will. Art of War was translated by a Jesuit. Remember, Art of War is 102. World War is 102. The American Civil War began on the 102nd day of the year. The 9/11 attack reportedly lasted 102 minutes. Look up Operation Amalgam Virgo, put on by the federal government June 1st, 2001, 102 days before 9/11, the day of the attack that lasted 102 minutes. A simulation was done very similar to what happened on 9/11, and the front page of that document has a big picture of Osama bin Laden. Al-Qaeda also equals 102, and a cipher known as Jewish Gematria that's based on the Latin order of the alphabets. But, yeah, there's even more to explain here. Just like how, Mnuchin announced days before the George Perry Floyd killing that they would no longer be debuting Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill. And Harriet Tubman equals 201, like George Perry Floyd, who was reportedly killed after an altercation that started with a counterfeit $20 bill. And then we talked about how Cicely Tyson, who played Harriet Tubman in her acting career, how she died this year on the 201st birthday of Harriet Tubman. So again, these are big boss numbers and could go on and on and on about them because there's just so much 201 stuff. It's just amazing. The book I'm working on right now will just blow your head off with 201. Again, the new book I'm writing, you guys are saying, why am I already writing a new book already? This one's a lot more ranty, a lot more language, not as much numbers, but enough to pop people's heads off and hopefully wake them up with an inspired message. It's not going to be as long as my last two books, nowhere near as long, but it's going to be I'm going to try to be 10 times as impactful. And I have a feeling that what happens tomorrow will probably end up in the book. So I'll tell you what's already happened with Bitcoin's going to end up in the book, but I'm just saying tomorrow will probably be another noteworthy page. So, again, if you got here late, we talked about how Bitcoin became worth $1 trillion for the first time today, 45 days before Satoshi Nakamoto's upcoming birthday on 4/5, April 5th, while he's 45 years old, and how on January 2nd, we played the clip from January 2nd, how we talked about the major ritual of 45 with Bitcoin and why we should expect it to be worth at least $45,000 on Valentine's Day, the 45th day of the year, which was exactly 45 weeks after his 45th birthday, which came true. And now, again, another milestone, 45 days from his upcoming 46th birthday, becoming worth $1 trillion when trillion's 46. Then we talked about why tomorrow looks like it could be a big skull and bones ritual. But from the information I'm working with right now, as someone who honestly has not done enough research on Bitcoin, is what does this little skull and bones ritual signal tomorrow? Does it signal really good things for Bitcoin? Is it going to an extremely new high? Or could it be one of those days where it suffers a major setback? And will there eventually be a day where it suffers a catastrophic setback that makes people want to hop ship, if you will? Because again, like Jordan Maxwell taught us, all currency is liquid. Maritime law, which also goes back to the Knights Templar, liquid assets and whatnot, cash flow like water flows. But yeah, what will tomorrow bring? And I'm trying to see, what did I do with my phone? I was going to take some calls, but I don't see my phone right now. So, you know what I'll do? Here's what I'll do. If you're on freetofindtruth.com, I'm going to set up a question right there right now for people who are interested.